The problem with saving someone's life is that you never forget their scent and what they look like no matter how long has passed. So when the Preston Silva, owner of Silva Marine Conservation and Australia's most eligible alpha bachelor, walked into my tiny Newtown flower shop on a Tuesday afternoon, old forgotten memories came rushing back, especially after his scent hit me, and my Omega body reacted like it had been waiting years for this exact moment. He was even more devastating in person than on the news, all powerful and sexy in an expensive suit, but it was his eyes that made my breath catch, dark, intense, and searching. "You don't remember me," he said, and it should have been a question but wasn't, and when he showed me his wrists, when I saw those white scars that matched the ones hidden under my watch, years of carefully buried memories started clawing their way to the surface. The harbor bridge, the cold wind, a desperate boy I'd held until dawn. "I've been searching for you for 10 years, he said, stepping closer, and my body responded with a heat spike so violent I had to grip the counter to stay upright. His pheromones wrapped around me like a physical touch, cedar and ocean and something uniquely him that made my Omega instincts scream with recognition. "You're my mate, Sage." The words hung in the air between us, absolute and undeniable, and all I could think as my heart hammered against my ribs was that I was engaged. I was engaged to Jordan, but my traitorous Omega body didn't care about the ring burning on my finger. It only cared about the powerful alpha standing 3 feet away claiming I belonged to him. Hey, welcome to Imagine BL Story. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really encourages my work and helps me bring you more stories. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. I stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a vase of lilies. My watch felt suddenly too tight around my wrist, like it was strangling the scars beneath. "I don't know what you're talking about," I managed, but my voice came out breathless and unconvincing. My pheromones was flooding my system with responses I couldn't control. My scent going sweet and receptive, my skin flushing hot, my pulse racing in a way it never had with Jordan. Never, not once in 2 years. Preston's nostrils flared slightly, and I knew he could smell the change in me. Of course he could. Alphas always knew. "Yes, you do," he said softly, but there was steel underneath the gentleness. He moved closer, each step deliberate, and I couldn't make myself move away even though every rational thought screamed that I should. The harbor bridge, January 15th, 10 years ago. It was 3 in the morning, and I was going to jump. "You found me. You stayed with me until dawn. You held my wrists and told me I was going to survive." The memories crashed over me like a wave. I'd been 18, walking home after a late shift at the convenience store. I'd seen the figure on the bridge railing, silhouetted against the harbor lights. The boy, because he'd been just a boy, 16 and shaking, had looked at me with such desperate, hollow eyes. I talked to him for hours. I shared my jacket. When he'd started to slip, I'd grabbed his wrists, held on so tight that we both bled where our nails had dug in. We'd stayed like that until sunrise, until help came, until he was safe. "That was you," I whispered. I could see it now, the same eyes, the same bone structure, grown into a man's face. A successful man who ran one of Australia's most respected conservation companies, looking at me like I was the most important person in the world. "That was me," Preston confirmed. He was close enough now that I could feel his heat, see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "You saved my life, Sage Conrad. I've been looking for you ever since." His hand hovered near my wrist. "May I?" I should have said no. Instead, I heard myself say, "Yes." He pushed up my watch gently, revealing the thin white scars. I told everyone they were from a gardening accident. Told Jordan on our 3rd date. He'd believed me without question. Preston held up his own wrist. The scars matched perfectly, same pattern, mirror images. "We bled together," he said quietly. "Bonded through trauma and survival. I feel it now, Sage. Don't you?" I did. God help me, I did. The pull between us was magnetic, undeniable, stronger than anything I'd experienced. It made what I felt for Jordan seem like a pale echo. "I'm engaged," I blurted out, holding up my left hand. "Getting married in 5 months. To Jordan Wright. We've been together for 2 years. You can't just walk in here and claim." "I'm not claiming anything you don't already feel," Preston interrupted, his voice rough with pain. "I can smell it on you. Your body recognizes the bond. I'm just asking you to acknowledge the truth." "The truth?" I laughed, slightly hysterical. "The truth is you're a stranger. I haven't seen you in 10 years. I don't My voice broke on the lie, because my Omega instinct screamed that I did know him, that I'd always known him, that the empty space I'd been carrying inside me for a decade had just found its match. Preston's jaw tightened. Hurt flashed in his eyes before he smoothed his expression. "You're right," he said finally. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have ambushed you like this." He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the counter. His fingers trembled slightly. "When you're ready to stop running from what we both know is real, call me." He turned and walked out. The moment the door closed, I felt the absence like a physical loss. My Omega biology mourned it, distress signals making me want to chase after him, call him back, demand he never leave. Instead, I sank behind the counter and stared at the business card. Preston Silva, founder and CEO, Silva Marine Conservation. At the bottom, in his handwriting, "I waited 10 years. I can wait longer. But please don't make me." My phone buzzed. Jordan's name flashed on the screen. "Still on for dinner tonight? We need to finalize the seating chart." I looked at my engagement ring, then at Preston's business card, then at the watch covering my scars. My whole body still hummed with Preston's presence. My Omega instincts reaching for an alpha who was no longer there. What had I done? More importantly, what was I going to do now? Jordan was already at the restaurant when I arrived. Laptop open, documents on screen. He looked up and smiled, warm, familiar, safe. Everything Preston Silva was not. "You're late," Jordan said without accusation. There never was any. Jordan didn't do conflict. It was one of the things I'd loved about him when we first started dating. After a lifetime of anxiety, being with someone who never pushed had felt like finally being able to breathe. "Busy day at the shop? You could say that," I muttered, grabbing the menu even though I already knew what I'd order. We were creatures of habit. Predictable, stable, boring. The word popped into my head unbidden, followed immediately by guilt. Jordan wasn't boring. Jordan was reliable. My best friend. We'd known each other since we were kids. Grew up 3 houses apart. When my father died 2 years ago and I'd been drowning in grief and the terrifying prospect of being alone, Jordan had been there. He'd held me while I cried. He'd proposed 6 months later, and I'd said yes because the alternative, being alone, untethered, vulnerable, had seemed unbearable. "Sage." Jordan's voice pulled me back. "You okay? You seem distracted." I should tell him. About Preston, the shop, the scars, the mate claim. Jordan deserved honesty. But what came out was just tired. Mrs. Kim's anniversary order was complicated. The lie sat heavy, but Jordan accepted it with a nod and turned the laptop toward me. "So I was thinking your aunt's table near the dance floor, and my parents near the bar." I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting to dark eyes and cedar scent and the way my body had responded to Preston like it had been struck by lightning. I'd been with Jordan for 2 years, engaged for 18 months, and he'd never made me feel even a fraction of what 30 seconds with Preston had sparked. That wasn't fair. Jordan was a good partner, supportive, kind, made me laugh. He respected my space during heats, never pushed for physical intimacy, which admittedly wasn't much. I'd always assumed I was just wired that way, but my reaction to Preston suggested maybe I just hadn't been with the right person. No, I shoved that thought away. Jordan was the right person. Safe, stable. "Are you even listening to me?" Jordan asked. "Sorry," I said quickly. "It's been a long day. Can we do this another time?" Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. Then he smiled, strained. "Yeah, sure. You do look exhausted." He closed his laptop. "Head home early. Get some rest. We can tackle this on the weekend." Relief washed over me, followed by more guilt. "You're the best," I said, meaning it. So why did that suddenly feel like a problem instead of a blessing? I kissed Jordan goodbye in the parking lot. A chaste, 3-second kiss, and drove home to my tiny apartment above a vintage clothing store. Small but cozy, filled with plants and flowers. It smelled like eucalyptus and lavender and home. I collapsed onto my couch and pulled out my phone. Preston's business card sat on my coffee table. I'd meant to throw it away. Instead, I'd photographed it and saved his number, just in case. I wasn't going to call him, obviously. I was engaged, committed, happy. My phone buzzed. Nina from next door. "Darling, I saw you come home. Come over immediately. I made too much pasta and I have gossip." I smiled despite myself. Nina Rodriguez was 62, dramatic, and had inserted herself into my life as mother figure, best friend, and perpetual entertainment. She'd been a telenovela actress in her youth and never quite left that energy behind. She was also surprisingly perceptive beneath all the theatrical nonsense. I knocked on her door, and she flung it open wearing a silk robe and too much jewelry. Finally, come, eat. She dragged me inside, piled pasta onto a plate. Now, tell Nina what's wrong. Nothing's wrong, I said automatically. Nina snorted. Darling, I've known you for 3 years. You have a face like an open book. Something happened today. Something big. She leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Did you meet someone? I choked on my pasta. What? No, I didn't. RHA. Nina practically bounced. You did meet someone. I can see it in your eyes. The confusion, the guilt, the longing. Nina, I interrupted. It's not like that. I'm engaged. I love Jordan. Nina's expression softened. Do you, darling? Or do you love the idea of Jordan? The safety of Jordan? The not being alone of Jordan? I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. That's not fair. Fair is boring, Nina said, waving her hand dismissively. Love is messy and complicated. If you love Jordan the way you should love the man you're marrying, you wouldn't look like someone just turned your world upside down. She reached across the table and patted my hand. So tell Nina. Who is he? And because I was exhausted and confused and Nina had a way of pulling truths out of people, I told her. Not everything, but about Preston walking into my shop, the mate claim, the way my body had reacted like it recognized him. Nina listened with wide eyes, and when I finished, she fanned herself dramatically. Dios mío, Preston Silva. The Preston Silva. Darling, his face was in the paper just last week, and he says you're his mate. She pressed her hand to her chest. This is better than any telenovela. Nina, I said desperately, I'm engaged. To Jordan. I can't. I would never. Of course not, darling, Nina said, suddenly serious. You're a good person. You wouldn't cheat. But have you considered that maybe Jordan is not your person? That maybe you said yes because you were scared and grieving and he was there? Preston Silva is a stranger, I said firmly, standing. I haven't seen him in 10 years. Whatever bond he thinks exists is based on one night a decade ago. That's not real. What I have with Jordan is real. It's built on years of friendship and trust. And passion? Nina interrupted. And chemistry? And the kind of love that makes your heart race. I didn't answer, because the truth was, I'd never felt those things with Jordan. I'd felt comfortable, safe, content, but not that wild, consuming love Nina described. I told myself that kind of love was fiction. But then Preston Silva had walked into my shop, and my Omega body had responded like it had been struck by lightning. Go home, darling, Nina said gently, seeing my distress. Sleep on it, but don't lie to yourself. That's the worst kind of betrayal, the one we do to our own hearts. I went back to my apartment, took a shower that did nothing to wash away the lingering scent of cedar and ocean, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I wasn't going to call him. I was going to marry Jordan, live my safe life, and forget Preston Silva had ever walked through my door. My phone lit up with a notification. An email. From an address I recognized from the business card. My heart stopped. I shouldn't open it. I opened it. Sage, I'm sorry for ambushing you today. That wasn't fair to you or your situation. But I need you to understand something. I didn't spend 10 years searching for you because of some random mate bond or biological imperative. I searched for you because that night on the bridge, you held on when I was falling apart. You promised me I would survive, and you made me believe it. I owe you my life. But more than that, I want to know the man you became. I want to know if the Omega who saved a suicidal teenager with nothing but compassion and stubborn determination grew up to be as remarkable as I've imagined for 10 years. I'm not asking you to leave your fiancé. I'm just asking for a chance to say thank you properly. To know you. To see if what I feel is real or just the ghost of a trauma bond. You deserve that truth as much as I do. Preston. I read the email 3 times. Then I turned off my phone, pulled the covers over my head, and tried very hard not to cry. Because the most terrifying part wasn't that Preston Silva claimed I was his mate. It was that some deep, buried part of me already believed him. I lasted 4 days before I saw Preston again. Not because I sought him out, I was still firmly in denial about everything, but because apparently fate had a sense of humor. I was at the Bondi Beach markets on Saturday morning, browsing the stalls for unique vases for the shop. Jordan was supposed to meet me, but he texted an hour ago saying he had to cover a shift at work. Something about a last-minute presentation. It happened a lot lately, these cancellations and postponements. I tried not to feel hurt by it. Jordan worked hard. His job was demanding. We'd have plenty of time together after the wedding. That's what I told myself, anyway. I was examining a hand-blown glass vase in shades of blue and green when a familiar scent hit me, and my Omega body reacted before my brain could catch up. Beautiful choice. Preston's voice came from behind me, and I nearly dropped the vase. The colors remind me of the Great Barrier Reef. Before the coral bleaching, anyway. I turned slowly, and there he was. Except this version of Preston Silva was different from the suited businessman who'd appeared in my shop. This Preston wore faded jeans and a simple white t-shirt, his dark hair slightly messy from the ocean breeze, and he looked younger, more approachable, more like the boy I'd held on that bridge, more dangerous. "Are you following me?" I asked, trying to sound annoyed instead of flustered. My body had other ideas. My scent was already sweetening, my skin flushing warm despite the cool morning air. "No," Preston said, and he looked genuinely surprised to see me. "I come here every Saturday. I buy ingredients for the week, support local businesses. I've been doing it for years." His lips quirked slightly. "Though if I'd known you'd be here, I would have dressed better." I glanced down at my own outfit, old jeans, a faded band t-shirt, hair pulled back in a messy bun. "I'm not exactly runway ready either." "You look perfect," Preston said simply. And the way he looked at me when he said it made my stomach flip, not like he was trying to charm me or say the right thing, but like he genuinely meant it. Like I could be wearing a garbage bag and he'd still think I was the most beautiful Omega he'd ever seen. I forced myself to look away, focusing back on the vase. I should go. Jordan's meeting me soon. Another lie. "Sage," Preston said quietly, and something in his tone made me look back at him. "Did you get my email?" "Yes. And I'm engaged," I said, holding up my left hand like a shield. "Whatever you think we have, whatever bond you think exists, it doesn't matter. I've made my choice. I chose Jordan." Preston's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "I respect that. But can I ask you one question? Just one, and then I'll leave you alone if that's what you want." I should have said no, should have walked away. Instead, I found myself nodding. "When you're with him," Preston said, stepping closer, his voice dropping low enough that only I could hear, "when you're with your fiancé, does your body react like this?" His hand gestured vaguely between us, indicating the way my scent had gone sweet, the way I was flushed and breathing too fast, the way every nerve ending seemed hyper-aware of his proximity. "Does your Omega recognize him the way it recognizes me?" "That's not fair," I whispered. "No," Preston agreed. "It's not, but it's honest." He stepped back, giving me space I simultaneously wanted and resented. "I'm not trying to ruin your life, Sage. I'm not trying to steal you away from someone you love. But I am asking you to be honest with yourself about what you feel. Because if what we have is just biology, just instinct, then you're right, you should ignore it and marry your fiancé. But if it's more than that..." He trailed off, his dark eyes searching mine. "Don't you deserve to know?" My phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. "Sorry, presentation is running long. Rain check on markets? Love you." I stared at the text, then at Preston, then back at the text. Jordan had canceled on me. Again. For work. Again. And I'd been about to go home alone. Again. Pretending it didn't bother me. Again. "Have you had breakfast?" The question came out before I could stop it. Preston blinked, clearly surprised. "No. I was just about to grab something. There's a cafe near here," I heard myself say. "They make good coffee. We could." I trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. What was I doing? This was a terrible idea. This was... "I'd like that," Preston said softly. "Just coffee. Just conversation. No pressure. Just coffee," I repeated, trying to convince myself this wasn't a mistake. "And then we go our separate ways." "If that's what you want," Preston agreed. It wasn't what I wanted. That was the problem. The cafe was small and tucked away from the main market area, with outdoor seating that overlooked the beach. We ordered, flat white for me, long black for him, and sat across from each other at a small table. The morning sun was warm on my shoulders, and the sound of waves provided a constant, soothing backdrop. "Tell me about your shop," Preston said, wrapping his hands around his coffee cup. "How did you become a florist?" I relaxed slightly. This was safe territory. My father was a gardener. He worked for the city parks department. When I was little, he used to take me on his rounds, teach me about different plants and flowers, their meanings, their care, how they fit into ecosystems. I smiled at the memory. He always said flowers were nature's way of showing off, that every bloom was proof that beauty could exist even in difficult conditions. That sounds like a good man, Preston said gently. He was. I took a sip of my coffee, the familiar bitterness grounding me. He died 2 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. He was only 58. I twisted my ring around my finger, a nervous habit I developed. The shop was his dream, actually. He always talked about opening a little flower shop after he retired. I did it for him, opened it 6 months after he died. I'm sorry for your loss, Preston said, and it didn't sound like an empty platitude. It sounded genuine. Losing a parent is... He stopped, his expression darkening slightly. It's one of the hardest things. You lost your father, I said quietly, remembering. That night on the bridge. You told me about him. Preston looked surprised. You remember that? Bits and pieces, I admitted. It's strange. Like trying to remember a dream. I know we talked for hours. I know you told me about your father, about the bushfire that killed him. But the details are fuzzy. I paused, studying him. What happened after that night? After I left? Preston was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the ocean. I spent 6 months in a psychiatric facility, he said finally. Intensive therapy, medication, the works. Saved my life, but it was brutal. I had to face a lot of things I'd been running from. My father's death, my mother's abandonment, my own depression and suicidal ideation. He looked back at me. But through it all, I held on to one thing. The Omega who'd found me in my darkest moment and refused to let me fall. You were my proof that there was goodness in the world. That people could care about strangers without wanting anything in return. My throat tightened. I'm not that special. Anyone would have done the same. No, Preston said firmly. They wouldn't have. Most people would have called the authorities and left. You stayed. You held me. You talked to me about flowers and your father's garden and all the beautiful things in the world I was about to miss. You made me want to see tomorrow. His hand moved across the table, stopping just short of mine. After I got out, I tried to find you. But I didn't know your last name, didn't have any way to track you. The police wouldn't release your information. I spent years searching. I built my company partially as a way to honor my father's love of the ocean, but also because I thought, maybe if I became successful enough, visible enough, you'd see my name and remember. And when I didn't? I asked. I kept searching, Preston said simply. 3 months ago, I finally found you. A friend of a friend mentioned an Omega florist in Newtown with scars on his wrists who told interesting stories about a gardening accident. I knew it was you. I pulled my hand back, cradling my coffee cup. Why wait 3 months to approach me? Because I was terrified, Preston admitted. What if you didn't remember me? What if you did and wanted nothing to do with me? What if? He stopped, shook his head. When I finally worked up the courage to come to your shop and saw the engagement ring, I almost left. But I'd waited 10 years. I couldn't walk away without at least trying. This is insane, I said. But there was no heat in it. You don't even know me. I don't know you. 10 years ago, we were different people. I was 18 and you were 16. That doesn't mean we're meant to be together now. You're right, Preston agreed. That night doesn't obligate you to anything. But what about this? He gestured between us again. Right now, in this moment, can you honestly tell me you don't feel it? The pull? The recognition? The way your Omega responds to my Alpha in a way that has nothing to do with memory or gratitude or obligation. Couldn't, because he was right. Sitting here with Preston felt natural in a way that terrified me. The conversation flowed easily. The silences weren't awkward. And my body, my traitorous Omega body, was practically humming with contentment just from being near him. Tell me about your company, I said, desperately needing to change the subject. Silva Marine Conservation. I've seen the articles. You're doing important work. Preston let me redirect, though his eyes said he knew exactly what I was doing. We focus on reef restoration and ocean cleanup initiatives. My father died trying to save sea turtle hatchlings during the bushfire. The smoke and heat had disoriented them, and they were heading inland instead of toward the ocean. He got them to safety but couldn't get himself out in time. His voice was steady, but I could hear the old pain underneath. I wanted to honor that, to protect the things he loved. That's beautiful, I said softly. It's also exhausting and frequently frustrating, Preston said with a slight smile. But worth it. We've restored over 100 hectares of reef in the last 3 years. We've cleaned up millions of tons of plastic. We employ 30 people full-time, mostly young researchers and marine biologists who are passionate about conservation. He paused. My assistant keeps telling me I need better work-life balance, that I use work to avoid dealing with personal things. Are they right? I asked. Probably, Preston admitted. It's easier to save the ocean than to figure out my own life. His eyes met mine again. Until 3 months ago, I had an excuse. I was searching for someone. Now I've found you, and I don't know what to do with that. You let me go, I said quietly. You respect my engagement and you move on with your life. Is that what you want? Preston asked. Really? It's what I should want, I said, which wasn't an answer and we both knew it. Preston was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up, pulled out his wallet, and left money on the table for both our coffees. Thank you for having breakfast with me, he said formally. I know it was probably a bad idea, but I'm glad we did it anyway. He started to walk away, then stopped and looked back. For what it's worth, Sage, your fiancé is a lucky man. I hope he knows that. He left before I could respond, and I sat there alone at the table, watching his retreating figure disappear into the crowd of market-goers. My coffee had gone cold. My Omega biology was screaming at me to follow him, to call him back, to not let him walk away. Instead, I texted Jordan, "Hope your presentation went well. Love you too." He didn't respond for 3 hours. The next 2 weeks were torture. Not because Preston was pursuing me, he wasn't. True to his word, he kept his distance. I didn't see him at the markets the next Saturday. No more emails. No more unexpected visits to my shop. The torture was that I couldn't stop thinking about him. I'd catch myself checking my email obsessively, disappointed when there was nothing from him. I'd find excuses to walk past his company's office building in the city, even though I had no reason to be in that part of Sydney. I'd dream about him, sometimes about the night on the bridge, sometimes about conversations we'd never had, sometimes about things that made me wake up flushed and aching and guilty. Jordan noticed my distraction, but he attributed it to wedding stress. We were in full planning mode now, venue finalized, caterer booked, invitations being designed. We had a meeting with the photographer next week. Everything was progressing exactly as it should. So why did it all feel wrong? You're doing it again, Nina said, appearing in my shop doorway with a covered dish. She did this regularly. Brought me food, checked on me, inserted herself into my life in ways that would have been annoying if she wasn't so genuinely caring. Staring into space like you're in a telenovela. What's his name? I don't know what you're talking about, I said, turning back to the arrangement I was working on. Wedding centerpiece for the Davidson reception next month. White roses and baby's breath. Darling, you've been checking your phone every 30 seconds for the past 2 weeks, Nina said, setting the dish on my counter. Empanadas. Still warm. Eat. She settled onto the stool I kept for customers and fixed me with a knowing look. So, did you call him? Did he call you? What happened? Nothing happened, I said. We had coffee. Once. 2 weeks ago. That's it. And, Nina prompted. And nothing. He's respecting my engagement. He's staying away. I stabbed the floral foam a bit more aggressively than necessary. Which is what I wanted. What I asked for. But not what you want, Nina said, making it a statement rather than a question. I didn't answer, which was answer enough. Nina sighed dramatically. Darling, I have to ask. When was the last time Jordan made you feel the way this Preston makes you feel? Jordan makes me feel safe, I said defensively. Safe is for bank accounts, not for love, Nina countered. When was the last time Jordan made your heart race? When was the last time he looked at you like you were the most important person in his world? When was the last time? Stop, I said quietly. Please, I can't. I'm marrying Jordan. In less than 4 months. I can't be having these thoughts. Nina's expression softened. Oh, sweetheart, having thoughts isn't the same as acting on them. But you need to be honest with yourself. Are you marrying Jordan because you love him? Or because you're afraid to be alone? Before I could answer, before I had to confront that question, the shop door opened. My heart leaped, hope and anticipation flooding through me before I could stop it. It wasn't Preston. It was Jordan. The disappointment must have shown on my face, because Jordan's smile faltered slightly. Bad time? He asked. and there was something tentative in his voice that I rarely heard. No, of course not, I said quickly, guilt washing over me. This was my fiancé. I should be happy to see him. I just wasn't expecting you. I took a half day, Jordan said, coming further into the shop. He nodded at Nina. Mrs. Rodriguez. Mr. Wright, Nina said, overly formal in a way that told me she was not impressed with Jordan's timing. I was just leaving. Enjoy the empanadas, darling. We'll talk later. She swept out of the shop in a cloud of perfume and disapproval. Jordan watched her go, then turned to me. Is everything okay? You've seemed distant lately. Just busy, I said, which was becoming my default excuse for everything. Wedding planning, shop orders, the usual, right? Jordan was quiet for a moment, then said, Listen, about the wedding. My mother called this morning. She wants to move up the timeline. My stomach dropped. What? Why? She's worried about her health, Jordan said, not quite meeting my eyes. Nothing serious, but she's getting older, and she wants to make sure she's there for our big day. She's suggesting we move it up to 8 weeks from now instead of 4 months. 8 weeks, 2 months, 60 days to become Mr. Jordan Wright. That's really fast, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We'd have to rush everything. The venue might not be available. The caterer. I already checked, Jordan interrupted. Everything can be moved up. It'll cost a bit more, but my parents are willing to help cover it. We just need to decide if we want to. If we want to, I repeated. Or if your mother wants to? Jordan's jaw tightened. That's not fair. My mother loves you. She's excited about the wedding. Is it so wrong that she wants to see it happen? No, I said quietly. I'm sorry. You're right. This feels sudden. We've been engaged for 18 months, Sage, Jordan pointed out. We've been together for 2 years before that. How much more time do you need? Forever, some traitorous part of my brain whispered. But I couldn't say that. Instead, I said, Can I think about it? Moving up the wedding is a big decision. Something flickered across Jordan's face. Hurt, maybe, or frustration. Sure, he said after a moment. Think about it. But Sage. He stepped closer, took my hands in his. His beta scent was calm, neutral. Nothing like the overwhelming alpha presence that Preston carried. I love you. You know that, right? I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. If you're having doubts. I'm not, I said quickly. Too quickly. It's a lot to process. Moving up the timeline. That's all. Jordan nodded, but he didn't look convinced. He kissed my forehead and left without taking any empanadas. I stood in my shop, surrounded by flowers for other people's celebrations, and tried very hard not to panic. That night, I lay in bed unable to sleep. 8 weeks. In 8 weeks, I could be married. Bound to Jordan forever. Living the safe, stable life I'd always thought I wanted. Why did that thought make me want to scream? My phone lit up on the nightstand. An email notification. My heart stopped when I saw the sender. I promised to stay away and I meant it. But I saw the announcement about the Marine Conservation Gala next Friday, and I thought of you. My company is hosting it. It's a fundraiser for reef restoration. There will be flowers everywhere, centerpieces, installations, the works. I thought you might like to see them. I'm not asking you to come as my date. I'm not asking you to come at all. But if you wanted to see the work we're doing, if you wanted to understand why ocean conservation matters so much to me, there's an open invitation. No pressure, no expectations. Just flowers and information about saving the reef. Preston. I read the email 5 times. It was innocent. Completely innocent. An invitation to a professional event. I could bring Jordan. I could go alone. I could not go at all. I should not go at all. I opened my laptop and looked up the Silva Marine Conservation Gala. It was being held at a prestigious gallery on the waterfront. Black tie. Sydney's environmental elite would be there. And according to the event page, they'd commissioned elaborate floral installations from one of the city's most exclusive florists. Not from my small Newtown shop. Of course not. Preston hadn't ordered flowers from me. He'd gone with someone else. That shouldn't have hurt, but it did. The next morning, I told Jordan about the invitation. It's a work thing, I explained over coffee. Marine conservation. Might be good for the shop. Lots of wealthy people, potential clients. Would you want to go with me? Jordan barely looked up from his phone. Next Friday? I have that conference in Melbourne. I'll be gone all week. Didn't I tell you? He had. I'd forgotten. Or maybe I'd blocked it out because some subconscious part of me had wanted an excuse to go alone. Right? I said. The conference. Well, maybe I'll just skip it then. Or you could go, Jordan said, still typing on his phone. Network, make connections. Could be good for business. He finally looked up, gave me a distracted smile. I trust you. Those 3 words sat heavy in my stomach. He trusted me, and I was lying to him. Not actively, not yet, but in all the little ways that mattered. The thoughts I was having. The dreams. The way I couldn't stop thinking about an alpha who wasn't him. I didn't respond to Preston's email, but I didn't delete it either. And when Friday arrived and I found myself standing in my bedroom trying to decide between staying home or attending a gala where I knew Preston would be, I chose the worst possible option. I went. The gallery was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the harbor, the opera house glittering in the distance. The floral installations were incredible, massive arrangements of native Australian flowers mixed with coral-inspired elements, creating the impression of an underwater garden. Whoever had designed them understood the assignment. I felt immediately out of place. Everyone here was sophisticated, wealthy, important. I was a small shop florist in a dress I'd bought on sale last year, clutching a glass of champagne I wasn't actually drinking because my omega biology was already on high alert, because I could smell him, cedar and ocean, cutting through the crowd like a beacon. My body knew exactly where Preston was even though I couldn't see him yet. My scent responded, going sweet and receptive despite my best efforts to control it. Sage. I turned and there he was. Preston in a tuxedo should have been illegal. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, perfectly tailored, devastatingly handsome, every inch the successful alpha businessman. But it was his eyes that held me frozen. The way they lit up when he saw me, like I was the only person in the room despite being surrounded by hundreds of people. You came, he said, and his voice held wonder, like he hadn't actually expected me to show up. I came. I agreed, my own voice coming out breathier than I'd intended. The installations are beautiful. I wanted to see them. Liar, Preston said softly, but he was smiling. You wanted to see me. I should have denied it. Should have made an excuse. Should have protected my engagement. Should have maintained the boundaries I'd been trying so hard to establish. Instead, I said, yes. Something shifted in Preston's expression. Heat, want, triumph. Dance with me. It wasn't a question. He was already offering his hand, and before I could think better of it, I took it. The moment our hands touched, I felt it, that electric connection, that recognition, that sense of rightness that I'd never felt with Jordan. Preston led me onto the dance floor, his hand settling on my waist, and suddenly we were moving together like we'd done this 1,000 times before. You look beautiful, Preston said quietly, his lips close to my ear. His breath against my skin made me shiver. I've thought about you every day for 2 weeks. I tried to stay away like you asked. I couldn't. Preston, I whispered, but I didn't know if it was a protest or a plea. Tell me you haven't thought about me, he challenged, his hand tightening slightly on my waist. Tell me you haven't wondered what this could be if you let yourself feel it. Couldn't, because everything he was saying was true. For 2 weeks, I'd thought of almost nothing else. I'd laid in bed next to Jordan's side of the mattress and imagined what it would be like to be with someone whose presence made my whole body come alive. I'm engaged, I said, but it sounded weak even to my own ears. Are you happy? Preston asked bluntly. With him. With your life. Are you actually happy, Sage? Before I could answer, someone called Preston's name. He tensed, his expression shifting from intimate to professional in an instant. I need to give a speech, he said reluctantly. But don't leave. Please, stay until the end. I need to talk to you. He released me and moved toward the small stage that had been set up near the windows. I stood in the middle of the dance floor, my body still humming from his touch, watching as he took the microphone and began speaking about ocean conservation, about the importance of protecting the reef, about the work his company was doing. He was magnetic, passionate. Everyone in the room was captivated, but his eyes kept finding mine in the crowd, like I was the real reason for every word he spoke. I should have left then, should have called a car, gone home, pretended this night had never happened. Instead, I stayed. The speech ended to thunderous applause. Donors surrounded Preston immediately, wanting to talk, to pledge support, to be close to his success. I watched from the edges of the room, feeling like an intruder in a world where I didn't belong. You must be very proud. I turned to find a woman beside me, older, elegant, with the kind of poise that spoke of old money and careful breeding. "I'm sorry," I said. "Of Preston," she clarified, gesturing toward where he was still surrounded by admirers. "He's done remarkable work. You must be very proud of your alpha." "Oh, he's not. I'm not." I stumbled over the words, caught off guard. The woman's eyes sharpened, and she glanced down at my left hand, at the engagement ring that suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Ah," she said, understanding dawning. "Forgive me. I assumed. The way he looks at you, the way you're sent." She stopped, shook her head. "Never mind. Enjoy the evening." She walked away, leaving me standing there with my heart racing. Whoa, you've made it this far. If you're still enjoying the story, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's continue. The way he looks at me, the way my scent. I needed air. I pushed through the crowd, found a side door that led to a balcony overlooking the harbor. The cool night air hit my flushed skin, and I gripped the railing, trying to steady myself. What was I doing? Why was I here? I was engaged to a good man who loved me and wanted to build a life with me. I had no business dancing with Preston Silva. No business letting him touch me, talk to me, look at me the way he did. Sage. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. If I looked at him right now, I'd do something I couldn't take back. "I know I shouldn't have asked you to dance," Preston said from behind me. "I know I'm making this harder for you, but I can't pretend anymore that this is just about thanking you for saving my life. That's not why I searched for you. That's not why I can't stay away." "Don't," I whispered. "Please don't say it." "You're my mate," Preston said anyway, his voice rough with emotion. "Not because of that night on the bridge, but because every instinct I have recognizes you. Because when I'm near you, everything makes sense in a way it never has before. Because I'm getting married." I spun around, finally looking at him. His eyes were dark with want, his alpha scent overwhelming this close. "I'm engaged to someone else, someone I care about, someone who's been there for me when I needed him. I can't just, I won't." "Does he make you feel like this?" Preston asked, stepping closer. "Does your body respond to him the way it responds to me? Does your Omega recognize him as—" "Stop," I choked out. "Stop asking me questions I can't answer. Stop making me feel things I shouldn't feel. Stop." Preston kissed me, or I kissed him. I honestly didn't know who moved first. All I knew was that suddenly his mouth was on mine, and it was like being struck by lightning. Every nerve ending in my body lit up at once. My Omega biology sang with recognition and want and rightness. His hands were in my hair, mine were fisted in his jacket, and we were kissing like we were drowning and each other was air. It was everything I'd never felt with Jordan. Everything I'd convinced myself didn't exist outside of books and movies. It was real and overwhelming and perfect and terrifying. "Mr. Silva?" A voice called from inside. "They need you for the auction announcement." I jerked away from him instantly. Preston's eyes were wild. His alpha scent spiked with arousal and possession. I could only imagine what I looked like. Lips swollen, dress rumpled, scent probably announcing to everyone in a 50-foot radius exactly what had just happened. "I have to," Preston started. "Go," I said, stepping back, putting distance between us before I did something even more reckless. "Go do your job." "I shouldn't. I need to leave." "Sage, please." But I was already moving past him, back into the gallery, toward the exit. I didn't run, but it was close. I grabbed my jacket from coat check, ignored the concerned looks from other attendees, and made it outside before the tears started. I kissed him. I'd kissed Preston Silva while wearing another man's engagement ring. While Jordan was in Melbourne trusting me, believing in me, thinking I was faithfully planning our wedding. I was the worst person in the world. My phone buzzed. Jordan's name flashed on the screen. A photo from the conference, him smiling with colleagues. The message read, "Miss you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Love you." I sank down onto a bench near the gallery entrance, phone clutched in my shaking hand, and finally let myself fall apart. Because I'd kissed Preston Silva, and it had felt more right than anything in my entire life. And that meant everything else in my life was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I paced my apartment, replaying the kiss over and over, hating myself and wanting it and wishing I could take it back and desperate to do it again all at the same time. My Omega biology was in chaos. Sent all over the place, body flushed and aching, instincts screaming that I'd found my alpha and then walked away from him. Jordan came home the next afternoon. I heard his key in the lock and felt my stomach drop because I had to face him now. Had to look at him and pretend everything was fine when I just betrayed him in the worst possible way. "Hey," Jordan said, dropping his bag by the door. He looked tired but happy to see me. "How was the gala? Did you make any good connections?" "It was fine," I said, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. "How was the conference?" "Long," Jordan said, coming over to kiss my cheek, the same chaste, passionless kiss he always gave. The kind of kiss you'd give a sister or a friend. Nothing like the way Preston had kissed me. Desperate and consuming and like he couldn't get enough. But productive. I think I impressed a few potential clients. "That's good," I said mechanically. Jordan studied me for a moment. "You okay? You seem off." "Just tired," I said. Another lie to add to the growing pile. "Busy week at the shop, right?" Jordan pulled out his laptop. "So I was thinking, if we're moving up the wedding, we need to finalize the guest list. My mother sent over some additions, mostly her side of the family, but we're up to 200 now. Is that too many? 200 people. Watching me marry Jordan. Watching me make vows I wasn't sure I could keep. Watching me become someone I didn't recognize." "Jordan," I said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." He didn't look up from his screen. "Why don't you really kiss me intimately?" That got his attention. He looked up, expression confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I gestured vaguely between us, "we've been together for 2 years. Engaged for 18 months. But you never kiss me. Not really. Not like—" I stopped. Couldn't finish that sentence. "Not like Preston kissed me last night." Jordan's jaw tightened. "I respect your boundaries. You've made it clear you're not comfortable with a lot of physical affection. I'm trying to be considerate." "I never said that," I protested. "You didn't have to," Jordan said, closing his laptop. There was something sharp in his voice now, something I rarely heard. "You flinch when I touch you too long. You make excuses when I suggest we spend the night together. You're always tired or not feeling well when things start to get physical." He stood up, started pacing. "I thought it was just how you were. That maybe your omega drive was lower than average. I didn't want to push. I didn't want to be the kind of alpha." He stopped. "The kind of beta who pressures their partner." "Do you love me?" I asked suddenly. "Romantically, not as a friend. As a partner." Jordan froze. "That's a ridiculous question." "Of course I—" "Answer honestly," I interrupted. "Please. Do you love me the way someone should love their fiancé? Or do you love me the way you'd love a best friend?" The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Jordan's beta scent, usually so calm and neutral, spiked with distress. "Where is this coming from?" he finally asked. "Answer the question." Jordan turned away, shoulders tense. "I care about you," he said carefully. "I want to build a life with you. I want to support you and be there for you. Isn't that love?" "But are you in love with me?" I pressed, standing up. "Do you want me? Do you dream about me? Does your heart race when you see me? Do you—" "Stop," Jordan said sharply. He turned back to face me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Pain, confusion, fear. "Why are you asking me this? What happened?" "I kissed someone," I said, and the words felt like jumping off a cliff. "Last night, at the gala, I kissed someone else." The color drained from Jordan's face. "You what?" "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears starting to fall. "I'm so sorry, but I have to know. Are we doing this because we love each other? Or because it's safe? Because we're scared to be alone? Because it's what everyone expects?" Jordan sank back down onto the couch, looking shell-shocked. "Who was it? Who did you kiss? Does it matter?" "Yes," Jordan said, voice hard. "It matters." "Was it—" He stopped, seemed to realize something. "It was him, wasn't it? The alpha from your shop. The one who claimed you were his mate." I didn't answer, which was answer enough. Jordan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course it was him. I saw the way you looked when you talked about him. The way you've been distracted for weeks. I knew something was wrong, but I thought—" He stopped, shook his head. "I thought it would pass. That you'd remember what we have together." "What do we have together?" I asked desperately. "Really, Jordan? What do we have?" "We have history," Jordan said. "We have friendship. We have—" "But not love," I finished. "Not the kind of love that makes you want to risk everything." Not the kind of love that consumes you and terrifies you and makes you feel alive. Jordan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, very softly, "Is that what you want? That kind of love?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I know I can't marry you while I'm feeling this way, while I'm wondering what if, while I'm lying to both of us." "So what are you saying?" Jordan asked. His voice was flat, carefully controlled. "You want to call off the wedding?" Did I? Was I really ready to throw away 2 years? A planned future? The safety and stability I'd craved since my father died? I started, then stopped. Started again. "I think we need to be honest with each other. Really honest. About what we want. What we feel. Whether this engagement is what we both want or just what we think we should want." Jordan stood up, grabbed his keys. "I need to go. I can't do this right now." "Jordan, please." "No," he said sharply. "You kissed someone else. You stood there wearing my ring and let another man kiss you. And now you're asking me if I love you? If this is real?" He laughed again, that same bitter sound. "I need time. To think. To figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do with this." He left, the door closing behind him with a quiet click that felt louder than a slam. I stood in my apartment, alone, and felt my carefully constructed life crumble around me. My phone buzzed. Not Jordan. "Preston. I need to see you. Please. I know I complicated everything last night, but we need to talk. I'll be at the harbor at sunset. The same place. If you don't come, I'll understand. But I'm hoping you will. The harbor bridge. Where it all started. Where I'd saved a suicidal teenager and somehow lost myself in the process. I looked at my engagement ring. At the empty apartment. At my reflection in the window. Red-eyed. Lost. Not recognizing the person staring back at me. I grabbed my jacket and left. The harbor was beautiful at sunset. The sky painted in shades of orange and pink. The opera house glowing in the fading light. I found Preston right where he said he'd be. Standing near the same spot where I'd found him 10 years ago, hands in his pockets, staring out at the water. He turned when he heard my footsteps, and the relief that flashed across his face was so genuine it made my chest ache. "You came," he said. "I came," I agreed, stopping a few feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to maintain some semblance of boundaries. "Jordan knows. About the kiss." I told him. Preston's eyes widened. "Sage. I had to," I said. I couldn't lie to him, couldn't pretend it didn't happen. He left. I don't know if he's coming back. I don't know if we're still engaged. I don't know anything anymore. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite my jacket. "You've destroyed my life." "I know," Preston said quietly. "And I'm sorry for that. But Sage, was it really your life? Or was it a life you thought you should want?" "What's the difference?" I asked bitterly. "Everything," Preston said. He took a step closer. "Let me ask you something. When you picture your future with Jordan, what do you see?" I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. Because the truth was, I didn't have a clear picture. I saw vague concepts: house, stability, routine. But no specifics. No moments that made me excited. No dreams I couldn't wait to achieve together. "Now picture your future without him," Preston continued. "What do you see?" I stopped, swallowed hard, because what I saw was terrifying. I see being alone, being vulnerable, taking risks, maybe failing, maybe getting hurt, but also maybe being happy, Preston said softly. Maybe being with someone who makes you feel alive instead of safe. Maybe having the kind of love that's messy and complicated and real instead of comfortable and predictable and empty. "You don't know that what I have with Jordan is empty," I protested. "Don't I?" Preston challenged. He closed the distance between us, and I could smell his alpha scent, see the intensity in his dark eyes. "Tell me you feel the same way with him that you feel with me. Tell me he makes you feel cherished and wanted and like you're the most important person in his world. Tell me, Sage, and I'll walk away right now. I'll leave you alone. I'll let you marry him and live your safe, stable life." Couldn't, because everything he was saying was true, and we both knew it. "I'm scared," I admitted, tears starting to fall. "I'm terrified of this, of what you make me feel, of losing control, of getting hurt, of—" "I'm scared too," Preston interrupted. "I'm terrified that I'll mess this up, that I'll be too damaged, too broken, too much, that you'll realize I'm not worth the risk." His thumb brushed away my tears. "But I'm more scared of letting you go. of wondering for the rest of my life what we could have been. Preston? I breathed, and his name on my lips felt like surrender. I'm not asking you to choose me right now, Preston said. I'm not asking you to leave Jordan or break your engagement or commit to anything. I'm just asking for honesty. Be honest with yourself about what you feel, about what you want, about whether you're marrying Jordan because you love him or because you're afraid of being alone. And if I choose him? I asked. Pain flashed across Preston's face, but he said steadily, then I'll respect that. I'll stay away. I'll let you build the life you think you want. But Sage. His forehead rested against mine, and being this close to him felt like coming home. If you choose me, if you give us a chance, I promise you I'll spend every day proving that you made the right choice. I'll protect you and cherish you and love you the way you deserve to be loved. Not safe, not comfortable, but real. I closed my eyes, breathing in his scent, feeling his warmth, letting myself imagine what it would be like to choose this. To choose the messy, complicated, terrifying possibility of real love instead of the safe, predictable certainty of comfort. I need time, I said finally, pulling back. I need to talk to Jordan, really talk to him, figure out what we both want, whether we're staying together because we love each other or because we're both too afraid to admit this isn't working. Preston nodded, though I could see how much it cost him to let me go. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. And if I'm never ready? I asked. If I choose him? Then I'll survive, Preston said simply. You taught me how to do that, remember? On this bridge 10 years ago. You taught me that survival was possible even when everything felt impossible. He smiled, but it was sad. I'll survive losing you, but I really hope I don't have to. I left him standing on the bridge, and this time I didn't look back. Jordan didn't come home that night, or the next. On the third day, he finally showed up at my shop looking exhausted but resolved. We need to talk, he said. I locked the shop door and led him to the back room. We sat across from each other, surrounded by flowers, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. I've been staying with a friend, Jordan finally said, taking time to think. And I realized something. He paused. I don't love you, not the way I should, not romantically. I love you as a friend, but I don't want you the way a partner should. And I think it's not just you. Jordan. Let me finish, he interrupted gently. I proposed because your father had just died, and you were falling apart. I thought stability would help. And maybe I thought it would fix something in me, make me normal. What things? I asked quietly. Jordan took a deep breath. I don't feel romantic attraction to anyone. I thought maybe I was a late bloomer, that it would click with the right person. But watching you these past weeks, seeing how you lit up around that alpha, I realized I've never felt that. Not once. And I probably never will. You're aromantic, I said softly. Jordan blinked. What? Aromantic. It's a real identity. People who don't experience romantic attraction. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Nina, I admitted when he asked how I knew. She thought maybe we were together for the wrong reasons, using each other as shields. Smart woman, Jordan said with a weak laugh. Then his expression turned serious. Sage, I love you. You're one of my best friends. But I can't marry you. Not when we'd both be settling. Not when you clearly have feelings for someone else. What do you want? I asked. Deep friendships without the expectation of romance. To focus on my career. Live life on my own terms. He reached across the table, took my hand. And I want you to be happy. Really happy. Alive happy. The kind you are when that alpha walks into a room. Tears streamed down my face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't enough. Don't apologize, Jordan said firmly. This is about being honest. About admitting we were trying to force something that wasn't meant to be. He squeezed my hand. Take off the ring, Sage. I looked down at my engagement ring. It had felt heavy for weeks. Slowly, I slid it off and set it on the table between us. What happens now? I asked. Now we figure out how to be friends again, Jordan said. Real friends. It might take time, but I hope we can get there. Me too, I said through my tears. We hugged. Tight and desperate and sad but also relieved. Go to him, Jordan whispered. Go to your alpha. Let yourself be happy. He left, taking the ring with him, and I stood in my shop surrounded by flowers and felt like I could finally breathe. I didn't go to Preston right away. I spent a week processing with Nina, who cried dramatically over the beautiful tragedy. and started therapy for the first time in my life. I finally confronted what I'd been running from. My mother's suicide when I was 5, my terror of abandonment, my pattern of choosing safety over love. My therapist helped me see that Jordan had left and I'd survived. She suggested something that shifted everything. Instead of building my life around not losing him, what if I built it around choosing him? Every day, not out of fear, but out of love. The words settled into me like seeds finding soil. 2 weeks after Jordan left, I finally went to Preston. I found him at his office late on a Friday evening, alone in his sleek corner office overlooking the harbor. When I walked in without knocking, he looked up from his computer, and the hope that flashed across his face made my heart squeeze. "Sage," he breathed, standing quickly. I wasn't sure if I'd hear from you again. "I ended my engagement," I said. "Jordan and I talked. We admitted we were together for the wrong reasons. He's aromantic. I was using him as a shield against being alone." I stepped into the office. "We're going to try to be friends. Eventually." Preston froze, like he was afraid to hope. "What does that mean? For us?" "It means I'm terrified," I admitted. "Of this. Of you. Of how much I feel when I'm around you." I took a breath. "But I'm more terrified of spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been." Preston moved around his desk in 3 long strides. "Say it," he demanded, voice rough. "Tell me what you want." "I want you," I said, and the words felt like flying. "I want to try this. I want to see what we could be if we're both honest and brave." He kissed me. Preston kissed me like he'd been starving for it, like the 2 weeks apart had been torture, like he needed to claim every breath I took. His hands cupped my face, tilted my head back, and I gasped against his mouth. He took the opportunity to deepen the kiss, his tongue sliding against mine in a way that made my knees weak. My body responded instantly, scent flooding sweet and receptive, heat spiking through my veins, every nerve ending suddenly alive. This wasn't like the gala kiss, desperate and stolen and interrupted. This was claiming. This was promise. This was finally letting ourselves have what we'd been denying. I fisted my hands in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing more. Preston growled. An actual alpha growl that vibrated through his chest and made me whimper. His hands slid from my face to my waist, gripping tight, and suddenly I was being lifted onto the edge of his desk. Papers scattered. His laptop slid dangerously close to the edge. Neither of us cared. "Sage," he groaned against my mouth, his lips trailing down my jaw to my neck, finding the scent gland there. When he pressed his mouth to it, sucked gently, I nearly came apart. "Preston," I gasped, my hands sliding up into his hair, tugging. He made a desperate sound, his alpha sense spiking with want and possession. His hands roamed. My waist, my back, sliding up under my shirt to touch bare skin. Everywhere he touched felt like fire. I arched into him, wrapped my legs around his waist, and felt him hard against me. The knowledge that he wanted me this much, that I affected him the way he affected me, made me dizzy. When we finally broke apart, Preston rested his forehead against mine. His hands were still on my waist, thumbs stroking gentle circles on my skin. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I walked into your shop," he admitted, voice wrecked. "Wanted to kiss you, touch you, show you exactly what you do to me." "I've wanted it too," I confessed, even when I was trying to convince myself I didn't. "I wanted you." "You have me," Preston said fiercely. "You've had me every day for 10 years. And you'll have me for the rest of our lives if you'll let me." "I'm going to mess this up sometimes," I warned, echoing his words from before. "I'm going to be anxious and scared. I'm going to push you away when you get too close because that's what I do. And I'm going to be too intense," Preston said. "Too protective. I'm going to trigger your abandonment issues and you're going to trigger my fear of not being enough. So we'll be a mess," I said. "A complete disaster," he agreed, smiling now, that beautiful open smile. "But we'll be a mess together. No hiding, no pretending, just honesty and choosing each other even when it's hard." "Together," I agreed. He kissed me again, and this time it was tender. A promise instead of a claim. When he pulled back, his eyes were soft. "Come home with me," he said. "Let me show you what it means to be loved by someone who's been searching for you for 10 years. I should have been scared. Should have wanted to take it slow, establish boundaries, protect myself. Instead, I took his hand and said, "Yes, The thing about choosing love over safety is that it doesn't magically fix everything. Preston and I didn't ride off into the sunset without complications. Real life doesn't work that way. We fought sometimes. I had panic attacks when he worked late, my abandonment issues flaring. He got too possessive, triggering my need for independence. We had to learn each other's damage and figure out how to love around the broken pieces. But we did learn. Slowly, messily, imperfectly. We went to therapy individually and together. We talked about boundaries and triggers. We fought and made up and learned that conflict didn't mean abandonment. And through it all, our passion was real. Intense kisses that left us breathless, heat cycles that consumed us both. The kind of physical connection I'd never known existed. Every touch felt electric. Every night together felt like coming home. Jordan and I rebuilt our friendship too. It took 6 months before coffee wasn't awkward. A year before we could joke about the engagement. He explored the aromantic community, found his people, seemed lighter. He even came to one of Preston's fundraisers with his new roommate, a fellow aromantic beta. We were all adults about it. Nina took full credit for our relationship. I knew it, she declared. The longing, the passion, the destiny. She'd already started writing our story as a telenovela pilot. The shop kept growing. I hired an assistant, got commissioned for Preston's company events, eventually featured in wedding magazines. My little Newtown shop became something I was proud of. Not just a memorial to my father, but my own accomplishment. Preston's company secured major government contracts for reef restoration. He was constantly in the news, at conferences, in environmental magazines. But no matter how busy he got, he always made time for us. For quiet mornings in bed. For late-night conversations. For the kind of domestic intimacy I'd never had. Cooking together, arguing about whose turn it was to take out the trash. We started volunteering at a youth crisis hotline together. Once a week, we'd take calls from teenagers in crisis. Preston shared his story. I talked about loss and grief and building a life after tragedy. Some nights we'd come home emotionally drained and just hold each other. But it felt meaningful, taking our worst moments and using them to help others survive. 3 months in, I had my first real heat in years. Not suppressed or manageable, but the kind that hit like a freight train, leaving me feverish and desperate and needing my alpha with terrifying intensity. Preston took care of me, patient, attentive, giving me exactly what I needed. Afterwards, lying tangled together, sweaty and satisfied and boneless, I felt more at peace than I'd ever felt. I love you, I said, the first time I'd said it out loud. I'm terrified and this might be a disaster and I might mess this up 1,000 different ways, but I love you. Preston pulled me closer, pressed a kiss to my temple. I love you too, he said simply. And yes, we'll probably mess it up 1,000 different ways, but we'll figure it out. Together. Together, I agreed. Now, 6 months into our relationship, I was standing in Preston's apartment. Our apartment, technically, since I'd moved in last month. Wrapping flowers for tomorrow's memorial service. We did this every year on the anniversary of his father's death. Brought flowers to the memorial site where his father and the other bushfire victims were remembered. Those are beautiful, Preston said, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. His scent was familiar now, comforting, home. My father would have loved them. I hope so, I said, leaning back against him. I wish I could have met him. He sounds like he was an incredible person. He was, Preston agreed, stubborn and passionate and deeply committed to protecting the things he loved. Kind of like someone else I know. His arms tightened slightly. He would have loved you. Would have been grateful that you saved his son. I didn't save you, I corrected, turning in his arms to look at him. You saved yourself. I just held on while you figured out how to survive. We saved each other, Preston said, and kissed me softly. You saved me that night on the bridge. I saved you from a life of safety instead of love. We're even. I laughed against his lips. That's a very transactional way to look at it. Fine, Preston said, grinning. Then we're both just incredibly lucky. That I can agree with, I said. My phone buzzed. A text from Nina. Darling, I need you both to come over immediately. I finished the pilot script and I need to read it to you. It's magnificent. There's passion and drama and a scene where the alpha threatens to fight the beta fiancé that is very historically inaccurate but dramatically necessary. Preston groaned. Do we have to? Yes, I said, laughing. Because if we don't, she'll show up here with the script and read it anyway, And at least if we go to her place, we can leave when it gets too ridiculous. It's already too ridiculous, Preston pointed out. She has us meeting during a hurricane. In her defense, we met during an emotional hurricane. I said, that counts. Preston pulled me closer and planted a kiss to my lips before he ushered us out. We went to Nina's apartment, sat through her dramatic reading of a telenovela pilot that bore only passing resemblance to our actual story, and ate the empanadas she'd made because you can't have a script reading without food. That's uncivilized. Later, back in our apartment, I lay in bed next to Preston and thought about the journey that had brought us here. All the fear and confusion and painful honesty that had finally led to this, choosing love over safety, passion over comfort, truth over lies. It wasn't the safe choice. It wasn't the easy choice. But it was the right choice. What are you thinking about? Preston asked sleepily, pulling me closer. How lucky I am, I admitted. That you walked into my shop. That you were stubborn enough to find me. That you made me brave enough to choose this. Lucky? Preston repeated, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. I like that. Not fated. Not destined. Just lucky. And loved, I added. Very, very loved. Always, Preston promised. For the rest of our messy, imperfect, beautiful lives. Always. I fell asleep in my alpha's arms, surrounded by the scent of cedar and ocean, and dreamed about flowers and bridges and all the ways love could save you. Not from the darkness, but through it. Together. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to share with a friend and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. Until next time, keep daydreaming in BL.